Welcome to Breaking Good, the officially unofficial podcast for Breaking Bad on AMC. I'm Jim.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're talking about Season 2, Episode 6, entitled Peekaboo. I really like this episode a lot. I think this is one of the better episodes of the series.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's fine. It's a nice bridge episode.
Okay. What did you think of the episode? What did you really think of the episode?
It's taken a while. The bald moon machinery is slowly grinding back to life after it's been dormant for a week. But yeah, I think, it's as I talk about this show on the podcast, I talk about like several firsts. Like when I first saw this episode, but I remember clearly when I first saw this episode, this thing really fucked me up. And I don't know why, but I feel like that a show or television series or movie doesn't achieve greatness until it like you really get all the gamut of the emotional experience. That's what separates like something that does something exceptionally well, like the Fast and Furious franchise from Breaking Bad, right? I mean, there's lots of things.
Well,
but,
yeah.
But that's like one note, or Crank. It's one note played really, really well.
Yeah.
Or Breaking Bad and another show like The Wire, there's every once in a while an episode to come by to just make you just want to sit on the couch and think about life and count your blessings and why you're so fortunate to grow up the way you did. And this Aaron Paul, aided and abetted by the twins Dylan and Brandon Carr, who are the plays the redheaded unnamed child. It's just bad because that out there in the world today, in this very country, there are kids growing up in this type of environment, and it's almost like too real. But that's one of the reasons why Breaking Bad's great, because just every once in a while they'll throw a haymaker at you like this. Spoiler alert! I know we don't usually traffic in spoilers, but this will not be the last time that it punches you in the gut.
Okay.
So it's one of the first times that you really saw Aaron Paul as someone other than the goofball wannabe gangbanger meth head idiot.
Yeah. And I was thinking that watching this episode, how much of this season is actually about Jesse as opposed to Walt. I mean, I don't know how many people know this, but Jesse wasn't supposed to even make it to season 2.
Yeah, we haven't talked about this. So I've heard conflicting reports. Like at the time, it seemed like the conventional wisdom was the writer strike saved Jesse. That if there was a 13 full episodes that they would have carried through their plot, and they wouldn't have had the breathing space to kind of step back and be like, oh wow, this Aaron Paul guy is really good, and But I've heard since then that Vince Gilligan, like early on when he started seeing the test footage and stuff, is like, nah, I'm not done with this kid. So that's I don't know if that's a George Lucas thing where in hindsight he's saying, oh yeah, I saw this, or whether they needed the writer's strike to take a year off to kind of reflect and see what they actually had here. Either way, it's hard to imagine Breaking Bad without the duality of Walt and Jesse at this point.
Oh yeah. And I think it really shows that. I feel like I lean more towards he was impressed by Aaron Paul and decided we're going to do more with him, because this season is so much more about Jesse and Walt.
I mean, he has his own arc that goes in parallel to Walt, and we also know that this is the single season rather that DeVilligan and his writers kind of plotted meticulously from start to finish, all 13 episodes, and you can kind of see their strands weaving back and forth to each other and kind of reflecting each other. And that's the point that I think Arya over at Cerebral made really well in this episode, that if Walter White's story is about decay and transformation, then Jesse's is about growth in complexity and maturation.
Yeah, we definitely see him growing from I just always think of that scene where Walt's going to buy the RV, and Jesse's just like, you're some old man, like what am I trusting you for? Like he's come a long way since then, and I think it shows.
And I think it goes, you can see in this episode particularly their different approaches to violence. Like at this stage, both of them are horrified by acts of violence, but Jesse gets older and wiser, and allows these things to feel it, to motivate him, and he feels them deeply, whereas Walt becomes more and more detached from his humanity.
Yeah.
And more just, crawls in his own justifications and up his own
Oh man, and there's
self-righteous
such
asshole.
a good scene. Such a good scene in this episode that we'll get to that focuses on that.
Yeah, are you talking about the Gretchen?
I am, yeah.
I was blown away by that scene.
Incredible.
And I have a take that I think you'll probably disagree. It'll make for good podcasting. We'll see.
Okay. All right. I have a lot to say on that scene, and I have a lot to say on Flynn this episode too. So we'll get there.
Give RJ his due.
Yeah.
So let me drop some background information. This is written by Jay Roberts and Vince Gilligan. Of course, we all know Vince.
Mm-hmm.
Jay Roberts has only 3 screen credits to his name. They're all season 2 Breaking Bad. It's 737, Bit by a Bee, and Peekaboo.
Okay.
So again, it's one of those things where I don't know where he came from. I don't know where he went.
But we're done with him. Now, this episode is the last. We're done.
I don't know what shadowy cabal of writers that Vince pulls these guys out of.
Mm-hmm.
But there he is. It's directed by Peter Medic, who is a Hungarian-born director that came to the United States, and he's done a lot of television, a lot of movies. Stuff that you would be familiar with recently is, of course, Breaking Bad. He did Carnival, 2 episodes of The Wire, an episode of House, some Sex in the City, Hannibal, most recently in 2013. So once again, you got Vince Gilligan, his secret cabal of writers, and an experienced director.
And then his the knife in his boot, which is Kelly Dixon.
Yeah.
Who does a hell of a job this episode. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but there's like a couple of shots with like Jesse spinning the barrel of that gun and like some quick cuts that she does that I really appreciated. She helps a lot too.
And here I think that you see the benefits of a talented crew of directors and writers dealing with child talent.
Yeah.
And, they're aware of what kind of range you can get out of a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old. And they're aware, and that awareness comes out in the writing, and it comes out in the performance. Like, if you look, I actually think these 2 kids, Dylan and Brandon, which I'll talk a little bit more, we actually met them in Albuquerque. I think they did a great job. But one of the reasons I think that is because everything was well within their wheelhouse. Like, I would believe, like, some of those really great moments you got of him just watching television, they might have filmed them for 15 minutes and just like, I need the 3 seconds of this particular old man reaction to this scene and wait until they're at the right moment of boredom or whatever to get it. And that's what you got to do. You can't give a kid Shakespeare and have them doing all this emoting and high drama. And then, and they know that. That's what you got. You can't have a dog fire an assault rifle. You can't have a child.
That's what CG's for.
You can't have a child engage in like these really deep pathological storylines. And I think that Vince knows that, and so do his writers, and his director knows what to get out of it. So, not to make any overt comparisons to other shows, but just an idle point I'd like to make.
Why don't we talk about the episode? Get into the recap, yeah?
Sounds like a good idea.
Okay, we start out with Jesse on the street corner. He is kind of playing with this beetle, and he seems like he's having a good time. He's smiling at this beetle, and then Skinny Pete comes up, squashes it, and then tells Jesse who robbed him.
This is a
Gives him an address.
Direct callback to last episode, Hank's meditation on what you do with cockroaches.
Okay, sure.
I mean, I figured, like, contrast Hank to Jesse, and even Jesse to Skinny Pete. Most people see this and they're like, oh, bug, squash it. Jesse's kind of engages his childhood like wonder, which works well in this episode where he gets to meet this kid.
Yeah, and I think it shows that he has a softer side to him that most of the people in this operation do not have, and that he has kind of a soft spot for vulnerable things, for vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he himself feels like that a little bit.
He also, that Spooge at the end, he gets squashed like a cockroach.
Yes.
They've made the conscious decision to link the criminal element to cockroaches, and we see kind of Jesse's, I wouldn't say horror or even annoy. Where was his reaction exasperation when Skinny P or like, oh man, I don't know what you would call that reaction. There's got to be a German word for it, I'm sure. It's a mile long, includes like 16 different emotions all jammed together. But I thought it was interesting how that was like kind of foregleam of what we got when Spooge's head got popped.
No, definitely. They book in the episode nicely with that. And I think a lot of people are going to probably write in and tell you, it's not a cockroach. It's a beetle.
I know, it's a
beetle.
It's a beetle.
We know that.
But it's artistic license.
Yeah, cockroach is longhand for beetle.
And just like, you know, we had the episode last, or the instance of the walking stick, which I said is a cockroach in disguise. Yeah, I mean, it's, you know, sometime a bug is just a bug, but I don't think you can ignore the symbolism when you've got all these allusions to insects in this episode.
For sure. So Jesse gets high in the car. He's got the address, found the house, and he gets his gun. He heads up to the porch where Spooge lives and just kind of hangs out there for a second. And then the theme kicks in, and then we come back, and he's practicing his speech, psyching himself up. The postman comes to the door. Postwoman comes to the door. I mean, this is just a whole like series of things. He goes inside. He looks around.
It's a meditation on like if you put an average person in the role of like a Tony Soprano thug, what the real life of just rolling up out of the blue on an afternoon, how that would go. And I think that's the, you know, Jesse's psyching himself up for the wrong stuff. Like, you know, the face-to-face confrontation with the bad guy.
He wants to look like Clint Eastwood when he shows up.
Yeah. And how I like how the way he's doing it is kind of like, you know, an actor rehearsing his lines. Like, you know, where's my money, bitch? Where's my money, bitch? My money. Where is it, bitch? He's trying all these different ways to do it in different inflections. And I think that was probably a lot of fun for Aaron Paul to do.
Oh, probably. I thought it would be fun.
And I wonder how much of that, although I asked SMQ, Stephen Michael Kozeda, Gomi at the Breaking Bad Fest, how much of like just your wise ass dialogue with Hank was just made up or improvised. He's like, none of it. It's like 100% script. And some of this stuff where he was like going on, it's like, I'm gonna bury you, I'm crazy, I'm mucho loco. And I wondered if that was just Aaron Paul running out his mouth, but it sounds like everything comes off the page.
Yeah, potentially.
But it just gets weirder and weirder because, you know, he hears the sound, he pulls a gun on the toddler, and the toddler's reaction is not like, oh my God, there's a strange man in the house with a gun. It's
that kind of makes sense. It's a flop house, right? It's like I could see there being people going in and out of this place all day long, strangers.
Yeah.
And the kid's probably used to it by now.
Like, this kid's not, mommy, daddy, where are you? It's just, I'm going to turn on the Home Shopping Network and flop down and start watching it.
And my God, the house is just a wreck. At one point, Jesse picks up a leg, like a fake prosthetic leg.
Yeah, so something Arya noted was that this house is littered with inhalers, rescue inhalers, and a prosthetic limb, signs of weakness. Which, do you think that's a conscious effort on Vince Gilligan to put us in this mental space where it's going to be Jesse confronting something in a obviously weakened state, or do you think this was just throwing a bunch of weird shit into a flop house?
I could buy that there's a lot of symbolism in this because, like I said, we start off with the beetle, and that is definitely a symbol of Jesse and his personality and how he feels about these things.
Sure.
So yeah, if you told me that Vince Gilligan put those inhalers on the set, I would not be surprised.
Okay.
Not one bit, actually.
All right.
So anyway, the kid is watching the shopping channel. It's the only channel they get. Jesse tries to change it,
which might possibly be the most depressing thing.
Yeah.
Although I also wondered if like Jesse didn't know how those dials worked. Did you ever have a television with the twin dials?
Sure. There was the UHF and the VHF.
If you want to get UHF is where Mr. Rogers hung out. Okay. You always had to turn the VHF dial to the UHF and then go to the secondary dial and start tuning that stuff in. It was this bizarre Rubik's Cube of television watching.
Yeah.
Do you think he just didn't know what the score was? Or
yeah, I think he only tries that one dial. And
yeah, you're not going to find Mr. Rogers on the VHF channel.
You find nothing else, I guess.
But that's a weird thing about like the high def thing is that if you got a television now that doesn't have one of those boxes, you don't get shit.
Yeah.
And I wonder, like, you know, there's another one of those like sad moments, like how many little kids, because their parents are drug addicts and haven't gone to Radio Shack to get the $20, $20 box, and need just don't have any television now.
Sure, probably a ton of them.
Yeah.
I also thought while watching this episode that this maybe is Jesse kind of observing what he's doing and how it affects people in a certain way. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, Spooge, and I'm going to call her Skank because that's what she's called throughout the episode.
She's credited on IMDb as Spooge's woman.
All right, Skank.
So
I'm going to call her Skank.
I think
for short.
you're safe to call her that.
So he sees those two. That's one thing. Seeing the kid is an entirely different thing. That's collateral damage that Jesse probably wouldn't think about.
Yeah.
Unless he was presented and confronted with it. And I think that's part of what this episode is doing too. So it probably gets the wheels turning in his head as well.
Right. Did you notice that on the Home Shopping Network that they're advertising knives? And did you see the name of the sale? It's Steel Knockout! ! Which, you know, if he gets knocked out by what, like a crowbar or something at the end, and then menace with the knife. Like, if these meth addicts had one shred of attention span, Jesse never makes it out of this episode, right?
Well, yeah. So I have a couple of problems with the way everything goes down here, but we'll talk about that once we get to Spooge and Skank.
Okay.
Anyway, we go to Skylar. She's in her house, and she gets a call from Gretchen, who she then calls back and says, thank you for paying Walt's treatment and all that, and says how grateful she is. And then Gretchen is kind of confused by that. And so she decides, as we see later, to stop by that afternoon while Walt is out teaching.
I also like how they use Marie's voicemail a lot in the series as a way to kind of establish what's going on. Like in her, and it's like shorthand for her and Skylar's relationship. Here we learn the information that this is Walt's first day back at school because he's done with this treatment and yada yada. But yeah, she Gretchen is in total what the fuck mode. Yeah,
as you would be. That's a very confusing thing.
And she's driving a Bentley because of course she would drive a Bentley.
Yeah, why not? Super rich,
living up in Santa Fe.
So Walt's teaching his class about carbon and also about the man who invented the diamond. And he tells them, you know, about how much money the Dr. Hall, who's the diamond inventor, made for GE, and how little gratitude they showed him. And Carmen comes in and kind of sees this happening. This is kind of an important point for Walt, right? Just the idea that Walt is less than satisfied with the amount of respect he's been given over the years. And I feel like coming back to work, the amount of respect he's going to be given.
That's
like just the disrespect that teachers are shown in general as far as reward.
So that's work. That's all like subtext, I guess.
Yeah.
What did you think of his? It's like he was telling the story, and he didn't. The way Cranston played this was like Walt didn't realize the significance to himself until he finished it. It's like, you know what his reward is? A $10 U.S. savings bond. He was like, one of those things. I was like, ha ha, oh.
Yeah, yeah. Like this stuff is just leaking out of his head. This resentment is just kind of
it's like he got caught up in like
does.
it rattled him in
like,
front of the class. Like, oh shit, that's me with this goddamn
gray
matter deal.
I think you're right about that for sure. He's definitely wrestling with those issues. There's a lot of thanks and gratitude and stuff in this episode. I mean, Skylar's, showing her gratitude toward Gretchen. Not sure what all that means, but it seems like there's a smaller theme running through this as well. Anyway, so Carmen and Walt sit down and have a small discussion here, and she says that he can basically come to her with any problems he has, and that she's, concerned about him and all that stuff. So.
And watching this interaction, what did you think the nature of their relationship was?
Principal teacher relationship.
So really, you didn't get any flirtatiousness from this?
No, not really.
Really?
Not really.
Huh. I mean, obviously, it's not something that like Walt would just like throw his mouth on his mouth on her mouth.
Uh-huh.
But there was, and
Hmm.
maybe it's just the awkwardness of the situation itself. Like this guy's back from cancer and he's bald now, and you're making this small talk. But it was played, and I think that that's one thing that they do great. How they will walk this tightrope of possibilities we talked about before,
Hmm.
where there's just enough there that you think maybe there is an opportunity for Walt to be unfaithful. Maybe this thing where the alternate cell phone, and they kind of play with that with the Gretchen thing later on, where Walt seems like preemptively defensive about him spending alone time with Gretchen,
Uh-huh.
that I thought was interesting and sets up some interesting possibilities down the line. But I thought
Did you
very
think it
clearly
was
they were setting up that possibility, because even Walt seemed to be like, what's going on here?
which side did you think the flirtation was coming from? Was it from Carmen or was it from Walt? Or
No,
both, or
Walt was just like, is what's happening what I think is happening? What is happening? He was kind of confused. I don't
so is Carmen the kind of woman who goes chasing after guys who are probably going to die soon?
No,
Like,
I mean, it
she
doesn't
just
make
turned on by that?
sense. It doesn't make sense, but it does seem that she was being a little bit flirty. And I could
Okay.
be
Hmm.
way off. and I probably am. I'm just
Uh-huh.
saying that's what I remember the first time I watched it thinking that I don't know why, why his being cancer riddled would make him more attractive.
I think you're right. There's some tension in there, but I don't think it's sexual tension. I think it's just the awkwardness of him being back. Is he feeling better? Is he okay? How do I need to approach this situation?
But I don't think I'm crazy for seeing some of this, because I think Bryan Cranston's portrayal is, because he's kind of like looking down to the side with his mouth slightly open, is kind of like he's spinning the wheels. I mean, I don't think. Do you think that Walt even given a chance to cheat on Skyler? Let me say,
No, I mean, if he does that, even he would have to step back and realize I'm no longer doing this for my family.
well, plus I think he genuinely loves Skyler.
I think so.
I think
Yeah.
Skyler is kind of like the love of his life.
Yeah, and his personality would have to be so corrupted by the money and the drugs and all this stuff to change him fundamentally in order for him to do that, I think.
Right. So no, I don't think that there was anything come from his side. I just, and again, totally could be off base, but I think that we're supposed to at least think about the possibility, and that's, if nothing else, Bryan Cranston's performance says that we're supposed to have that kind of in the back of our mind.
Okay. So they walk outside, Walt Jr. and Walt, after school, and they go to the car and they see a missing flyer that's been modified to make fun of the naked fugue state.
Missing my pants.
Yeah, missing my pants. It says like "help, I'm buck naked" or something like that.
Sure.
I thought that was really funny, and like looking at that, I can only imagine that Bryan Cranston had a tough time not smiling when it's your own picture on the thing and it's been modified. I don't know.
I think one of his greatest strengths is his ability to deadpan through everything.
Yeah.
Like
sometimes they can't though. I've seen the outtakes.
Oh, have you?
It's like,
because that's
not
the thing,
for
like,
this scene, but for other scenes.
Oh,
yeah.
well, I'm just saying, because I have too, and I feel like the Cranston's the one that usually, when he needs to sell a joke, he is like an Iron Man. Like that's one of his comedic gifts, is that he doesn't corpse very often.
I think you're right. It's mostly other people cracking up,
right,
and him making other people crack up. Like he will be the butt of a joke.
Yes,
he will instigate.
He will come out with his balls hanging out, completely stone faced, and not be the first person to crack. And even when everyone else is cracking, he still maintains a stone face, because he knows in this room there's still a laugh or two to be mined from my stone face. Yep. And my exposed balls. That's the kind of guy that Cranston is.
I noticed something interesting. So on the way out, a kid calls Junior Flynn. Says, "Hey, Flynn."
I thought, as I was watching, I thought Walt was going to take the bait there and be like, what's this Flynn stuff? In the way that Walt kind of does.
I think they're making
an
obvious connection here. So this is the thing that I feel like I've discovered and have had an epiphany about Flynn.
Oh, okay.
In the second watch through, because the first watch through season 2, I just blitzed right through. I was trying to catch up.
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the reason that Junior calls or tells his friends to call him Flynn is because he is embarrassed by what Walt did with the fugue state.
You're right. The Flynn thing kind of
And they
happens.
make that obvious connection right here.
That is a really great point. And
nobody
I
ever
think
calls him Flynn until after the fugue state.
I think you're 100% right.
Okay.
And I mean, the point I wanted to make was like, if my son, he's not even named after me. We talked about this special type of hubris it takes for that.
Yeah, right.
But if he just like decided one day he wanted to be known as Jamie,
you'd be like, why?
It might not be accusatory or like, you know, it's like, what, the name I gave you isn't good enough? You son of a, it would have been like, you know, like, what's up with that? Like, you're my son. I love you. I'd like to know what's going on in your head kind of thing.
Do you not like your name?
Yeah. Like what? Why Jamie and not Michael or whatever? But yeah, he's the fact that this clearly bothers Walt and he doesn't directly address it. I think it's perfectly in character for him.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because he's the master of like, you know, not just oblivious, because he definitely knows it and doesn't like it. It's more, he can't figure out a way to be passive aggressive in confronting it, right?
Yeah, no, you're right. He doesn't want to confront it head on.
Yeah, so
yeah. Okay, so Jesse gives the kid some food, the Peekaboo kid. Can I just call him Peekaboo?
Sure, why not?
Because he plays Peekaboo with him in this scene. And then Spooge and Skank come home and Jesse jumps him, hits him with the gun, and kind of holds him hostage there for a second.
I thought Jesse is very powerful in the scene. Like Aaron Paul is like using his daddy voice and has really cowed these people. And it's you know, you go from the guy nervously rehearsing this and he's just got it down cold, and that the problem is that slowly erodes throughout the episode.
Oh God, does it ever.
And eventually even the junkies know that this guy is a paper tiger.
Yeah.
And take advantage of him. But like, he is acting the part.
Yeah, his body language too. I was noticing while watching this how he's leaning toward them with this gun. He's not kind of back on his heels here. He's up on his toes,
right,
ready to pounce on him. Then Walt and Junior are driving home, and they're talking about ways to get back at the flyer culprit. And then they get to their house, and Walt sees Gretchen's car in the driveway.
Right.
Which has him a little nervous.
Yeah, it's great. They have this. My second time through the series, I see what a genius they are of using. You know, we talked about in our Godfather podcast where there's this genius note in the Godfather 2 where there's this big confrontation between Fredo and his brother Michael. And it's interrupted by a perfectly natural occurrence, a waiter going to fill their glasses. But it gives them like 20 seconds to naturally just mug at each other. Absent the waiter, it would just look like a Mexican soap opera. Or it's just like they're just, you know, dramatic music playing and they're just eyeballing each other with extreme close-ups going back and forth. The Bentley being in the parking lot, or not the parking lot, the driveway, and Walt Jr. as a teenage boy naturally just like, wow, sweet ride, and walking around it. Gave time for Bryan Cranston to just be like flop around like a fish out of water without it being weird. And that's the really subtle parts of storytelling and writing that I think separate the truly greats from the also rans.
Yeah, you're right. It makes it feel more natural.
Like I want to give this spotlight showcase moment. It would feel like a spotlight showcase moment, but I'm going to introduce something as a distraction to the audience to make you not aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that would be something that's difficult to write, but kind of easy to do on set during the filming.
Yeah.
Like say, okay, when we're blocking out shots, we want you to walk around this car and say how sweet it is, and your dad's just gonna be doing whatever. Can't really write that, or I wouldn't think you could write that.
Right. So what did you make? Let's talk about Dylan and Brandon Carr, the little boy here. We met them in Albuquerque. What did you make of them? Like
what scene are we in?
We're just saying we're just exiting the. I mean.
Well, they go inside and all that.
I'm not saying
first.
about in the episode. I'm just talking about them as people.
Okay.
Like this weird thing that they were. I mean, you can tell they haven't done a lot of press. They didn't understand things like, you know, they did a surprise thing where they ambushed me in the costume contest where they just walked out on stage. And, you know, it's of course I knew who they were, and I talked about, you know, and I made some riffs on their performance, and they're just like, I met them afterwards backstage, and they're just blown away. Like, how did you know about this? Like, well, you were in one of the top, I'll say Peekaboo, maybe a top 5 episode. I mean, I don't have like an exhaustive list, but certainly in season 2, it sticks out.
Yeah, it does.
Among a lot of really great episodes as being a series defining moment. And you're here to the Breaking Bad festival, and of course, everyone is going to, if they don't know your names, they're going to know your faces, and they're going to want to play Peekaboo with you and all this other stuff. But it's like, what a weird experience for them.
Yeah, it felt to me like they were pretty normal kids.
Yeah,
like maybe they're not like sheltered from this stuff, but they're definitely like they have a normal life at home. It's not like they're actor kids.
Yeah, and they really liked Aaron Paul, and he was really cool.
Yeah,
but you know, they haven't been connected. They haven't watched the show. They haven't even watched the episode that they're in.
Yeah, that's probably not appropriate.
right. But I just thought that was really cool how they're just completely. I mean, I was thinking about my son, or this guy. I'm reading Harry Potter.
He's roughly the same age as they are.
Yeah. Right? And I'm reading the first Harry Potter to my son right now. It's one of his Christmas presents, and one of the interesting things is that Harry Potter's famous in the wizarding world, but he doesn't know it. He grows up to like he's the age of 11 before he finds out he's a wizard. But like random people in funny looking cloaks would come up to him in the street and like shake his hand.
Okay,
it's like one of those like these guys are having a Harry Potter experience where like, you know, they're just normal kids, and every once in a while a Breaking Bad, and the mother mentioned that that it's not really cool if they're out and having dinner to just be like come up and. Because that's not what these kids' experience is. Yeah. But they seem to really enjoy their little celebrity at the fan fest. I thought that was cool.
They're having fun. Walt's not having fun though. He goes inside and he greets Gretchen, who makes it apparent that she has not told Skylar anything, which relieves Walt a little bit. And then she leaves, and Walt follows her out and asks her if they can talk soon. Gretchen just kind of drives away.
Sure. Oh, you know, we glossed over the scene of Walt and Walt Jr. talking about their revenge fantasy.
Yeah, the scorpions and
the anthills and the hoods in the deserts.
Yep.
That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, I tried to figure out what film that was from, because they actually did that on Sons of Anarchy as well, I think.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, I think, are pulling from these old Westerns. Sure. I don't know what film that's from.
It's probably some Sam Peckinpah thing.
Yeah, it's probably like the
Wild
most famous
Bunch.
of the famous Western films.
Sure.
But I don't watch a lot of them, so don't know it. Anyway,
I've seen every important Western since 1990.
Okay, which is like 2.
Yeah, I was like, you got Unforgiven, you got Tombstone, you got like 310 to Yuma.
You've got the one with when Leonardo DiCaprio is a kid.
What?
It's a comedy.
That's not important.
I know.
Or probably even a Western.
That was the point.
Back to the Future 3? Yes, I've seen Back to the Future 3. You got to throw that in the list.
Marty, you got to get on the train.
We wanted to make this into a period piece.
Yeah. Terrible idea.
Is it?
Yeah, no, it's a bad movie.
Do you want to turn this into the Back to the Future?
No.
What? It's
a bad movie. Yeah. It's easily the worst of the Back to the Futures.
Okay.
And
is it like
it's not even a standalone good movie.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't like.
I had no idea.
Do not like that.
I think Back to the Future 2 is the worst.
Oh wow! Okay. At some point, we will have to talk about.
If you'd like to commission a Back to the Future podcast, go to subbable.com/baldmove.
Okay,
let's we got to talk about Breaking Bad.
Yeah, Jesse's trying to find his meth and get his money on Spooge and Skank, but they don't have it. And what they do have, though, is an ATM in the backyard,
and asses, somewhat full of drugs.
Yeah, not really full. They could have fit more in there, I'm sure. Yeah. Then they do this little montage of shots of the crime scene where they stole the ATM from, while Spooge explains how they got it and how nobody got killed. Victimless crime.
It's a victimless crime, yo.
And they show the dead guy in there.
I love me and the slit just boosted the ATM. These people,
yeah.
I mean, these scenes are so dark, but there's also this weird like Monty Python,
element
of like, if these people were a little bit smarter, they would have taken Jesse's threats more serious. But since they're fucking idiots, it completely goes over their head.
Yeah, he's talking about like, there's just a lot of hilarious dialogue. Like, you know, he hits him in the head and he's like, oh, I think it's gone cranial. And he's like, yeah, well, I got 5 bullets, 1 for each kneecap and 1 for your cranial.
Yeah, a guy's got a gun to your head and you're talking about how bad your noggin hurts.
There's so much comedy in this. I mean, even when the lady comes up, the postwoman comes up.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's played for comedy and it's just gold. I love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
And like the fact that the Jesse's first words when he sees the ATM is, yo, that's my bank, man.
Oh, yeah.
And this guy, this Spooch guy knows FDIC and the concept of it being federally insured. Really?
Yeah, no. I mean, he's talking about subdural hematomas. I mean, I feel like the guy might have had an education before he went meth.
Until he introduced himself to meth.
Yeah. He got through like a semester of college where he found meth and then turned into this.
Sure.
Anyway, I don't know. Do you think this is going to come back on Jesse at all? Like the idea that Jesse's at this scene, there's this victimless crime, as he says, but in actuality, the guy got killed at that location. Police are investigating. Like, do you think any of that comes back on him?
Well, I've seen a whole series, Jim.
I know.
I don't know if you can ask me the questions, but I will say it's intriguing how that the show bothered to show us him frantically wiping down his fingerprints.
Yeah.
But
that's
you know full well when he's doing that, he's doing a half-assed job of it.
Yeah, he's not getting the kitchen. I mean, he got a sandwich. He touched the plate, presumably. Sledgehammer. Yeah, he doesn't get all of his fingerprints.
Exactly. So it would be intriguing to see where they go from here. Not having seen the entire series.
Yeah, I know. So Spooch is trying to bust the ATM open with a sledgehammer. Jesse's worried about the kid. The addicts want to taste, and Jesse just wants his money and get out of there.
Sure.
Not a lot to go on in that scene. So I'm gonna go to Walt and Gretchen meeting because this is a much
before we do
scene.
this. I want to call out something that I thought Arya did a good job noting is that Jesse seems especially outraged about what the hell kind of mother are you?
Oh,
give him a bath, put some baby powder on him, something. It's the echo of his angry fight with his mother.
Yeah.
And like,
you think he was neglected? Is that Jesse's problem? Not to this degree, obviously, but
that's the thing. Like, we're in a weird position where our parents have turned their backs on us for stupid shit.
Yeah, we were already adults.
Yeah, I know, but it's still like, if you're a parent, it's ridiculous the fact that you would were you 18 at the time?
Yeah, 20.
You're 18 and you're living a wild, dangerous course by theirs, and the reaction is to turn your back forever. Like, that's an unnatural thing to do. And that's one thing if you got a drug addict that's stolen from you and all that kind of stuff, etc. I don't know how to properly peg, but I think definitely that's a painful thing to experience. And yeah, I think that definitely lends a little bit of more outrage to Jesse. And Jesse himself is young. What is he, 22?
Man, yeah, good question.
Weird thing is like, I think when I see it's weird. Like, when you see stuff when you're 22 and then you see stuff later and it's more meaningful. And it's things mean differently when you've had your first love. It means things differently when you've had your first loss. Like that's one thing that Jesse can cling to. Yeah. Like, I know what a mother is supposed to do, and my mother and you are not fitting up to that ideal. And I'm going to lash out at you since you're a convenient target.
Sure. No, I think a lot of that is mixed up in there with Jesse's own family. And because it's such a fresh thing, right? I mean, what was it, 2 days ago, 3 days ago that Jesse was kicked out of his house by his parents and had to sleep in a fucking RV covered in porta potty shit? Like, yeah. He's got to be bitter about that a little bit.
That's another thing that Arya made a point. He actually has like a whole page devoted to the similarities between Jesse and the kid in And that's one of the things, like he had to spend a whole night in his filth. And he had no control over that. Neither is this child. Like, obviously the child can't like pay for a water bill and go out and get soap and bathe himself properly. Jesse was at the mercy of his parents kicking him out and Walt turning his back on him, just like this child. So there's a lot of parallels. Another one is, if you notice in the child's room, he has a toy spider. And one thing we talked about in the spoiler section of season 1, which I can now share with the rest of the Breaking Bad virgins, is that Jesse, when he was going through his childhood box, when he went back to his parents' house, in that episode where he met his younger brother and all that, he had a toy spider. So they're clearly putting parallel, and for some reason we talked about this.
Where's my spider, bitch?
Yeah,
bitch, where's my spider? Did you steal my spider?
This is why Villigan's weird, is that he associates spiders with childhood innocence.
Yeah, what the hell, Vince?
The man worked on X-Files for a lot of years. He's a Southern gentleman with a very creepy outlook on life. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely supposed to see both textually and subtextually the link between Jesse and this child.
Yep, for sure. Let's talk about the link between Walt and Gretchen. Yeah?
Yeah.
Because they meet in a diner or the cafe or wherever. She says she hasn't told anyone anything, and Walt apologizes 3 times, as he notes. And then she wants to know how Walt's going to pay for the treatment, or how he has been paying for the treatment, and Walt won't tell her. And then when she persists, he gets mad, accuses her and Elliot of cutting him out of the company. Shit just breaks bad, and he eventually says, "Fuck you."
So the shocking, I'm a little bit on Team Walt here.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. He's
Let's
deluded.
fight about it.
Okay. I think he's deluded. I mean, it became apparent during this conversation that the way he sees the relationship with Gretchen and Elliot is not the way that it actually was.
Well, so why? Why do you think
I inherently trust Gretchen more than him for some reason.
I think that
and I think it's because he's a drug dealer and a liar, and we've seen his poor performance in the past.
So he definitely broke up with Gretchen, and there is, I think we talked about this in the main cast, because it's not really a spoiler. It's what do you call? It's like the word of God. It's not on scene, but Vince Gilligan talked about. No, it was actually the actress that plays the Gretchen talked about how she had a lunch with Vince Gilligan, and he laid out her character's background, where they went to like this 4th of July party at a lake house, and he saw how rich they were, and like the
and they say that in this scene.
Trigger, I mean, it's all hinted at, but it's explicit that Walt's massive inferiority complex in the face of all this privilege made him think that he could never be good enough, or he could never measure up, and he took off. Okay, great, you guys broke up.
He didn't explain that to her.
Explain to me how that entitles them to profit on Walt's genius after he leaves.
So there's more to that. Right?
I agree.
There's definitely more to that than just Walt breaks up and then they have this pleasant relationship. It's like Walt must have just taken off, like, and not spoke with them. I mean, obviously those things happened, right? Walt left. He didn't get money from it. There's a reason there, and I don't know what that reason is, but Gretchen and Elliot have taken the gesture of saying, we will pay for all your stuff. I can't believe that they have changed so much as people in those intervening years, that back then they were greedy and instantly ready to cut him out of the company at the slightest infraction, and now they're willing to give him millions of dollars to pay for his treatment. Okay, so unless they feel super guilty about it,
which is that's a possibility. But I also think here's the thing that really bugs me is that I think Walt's entirely right. I don't owe you an explanation. I don't owe you I mean, I need to make things right with my family, but I don't owe you shit. I haven't taken any of your money. I haven't taken any of your sympathy.
No, but he's mixed them up in a lie that's been perpetuated for months now.
How does that in any way impact Gretchen or Elliot's quality of life?
It doesn't, but it changes the way people think about them. Certainly.
People like Walt's family, sure, which is Walt's problem to deal with. Now I can see Gretchen saying, I'm not going to carry your water. If Skylar calls me again, I'm going to say, we're not paying for the medical treatments and you have to deal with it. But this whole like quasi threat of, I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the information, leads me to believe that there's something about Gretchen and Elliot that is a little bit, not pig-headed's not the right word. It's just, that was just an asshole move. Like, it's cool that she
I mean, I
went
don't
along with
disagree
the
with
lie
that.
until she had more information. But the way she started this information was like, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet with this information.
Yeah, I don't disagree that that is somewhat of not a veiled threat, but a little threatening, kind of. I just don't know that you would be okay if I were to go around telling people things about you that weren't true, even if they didn't affect your quality of life. Like if I say, "Oh yeah, Aaron and I totally went to Kings Island last weekend together," and we hadn't actually done that, and then someone comes up to you and says, "Oh hey, great time at Kings Island last week. How was it?" And you're like, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you went with Gino. He told me everything." And then you're like,
Yeah.
now
That's the kind
you're
of thing that
mixed up in
happened
it,
as
and
teenagers all the time. Like, especially if you're.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Then you'd have to play it off and say, "Oh yeah, mom and dad of my friend, I was definitely there with them."
Hell yeah, he slept the hell out of my house. Yeah, of course. We played video games all night long, whatever.
But I mean, it's not totally divorced from your problem.
But here's what I don't like. And again, this is a soft, like I'm a little on Team Walt. Is like the proper response to that isn't I'm going to borderline emotionally blackmail. It's you need to make this. Yeah, you're right. You need to make this right to family. But you also like it's not cool what you did, and there's some sort of time limit to where I can't allow you to keep using us in this lie. I think it's weird how Gretchen like took this middle path of telling Skylar we're withholding your money, we're not paying anymore. She like partially sold his lie, but didn't let it's weird. I don't know how I would have handled it, but I didn't like the whole quasi-emotional blackmail and demanding of an explanation. Like you can demand that they stop. You can, but
yes, okay.
Like what the hell does she know what's going on between Walton and Skylar? And with cancer I
mean, I guess it confused me a little bit when you said you're on Team Walt and thinking that maybe Walt didn't do anything really terrible here.
Well, but I also think that
I get where you're coming from. Like she can say stop it, but he doesn't really owe her an actual explanation.
Yeah. Like you want to get in my bedroom and know all the thing and with my son's life and the Flynn and the feud. She's like, fuck you. I don't owe you anything.
So do you think that after he apologizes 3 times and she doesn't let it go, and she
doesn't just not let him go, she's belligerent about it.
Yeah, she demands an explanation.
And again, this is a man dying of cancer. So like that's the weird double-edged sword with his relation. You can excuse so many things like Skylar's a bitch because this man's dying of cancer. Why don't you cut him some slack? Yet Walt is cooking meth and involving them with dangerous guys like Tuco.
Sure.
So like that's where the other side, like this isn't a katana, it's a double-edged sword. It cuts both ways. With Gretchen, she's an outside, uninterested third party. I'm tend to be more on Walt. Like, yes, I know Walt's a lying scumbag. Gretchen doesn't know that, and I think it says something about Gretchen that she's so aggressive and needling of him in this.
Yeah,
I don't like this woman's face either. Every single time
she's casted,
she's casted as like Ross's ex-wife who turned lesbian.
See, I haven't seen her in that.
And she's always the bitchy girlfriend or ball busting wife.
But she's very concerned about Walt in this scene. She's like,
is she?
You've changed so much. This is not who you were. What happened? That's
presumptuous too. They don't know. I mean, I don't
know.
No,
they knew who he used to be, and the person he used to be wouldn't go around lying about this stuff. And after, he gets mean about it afterward. It's just like I have an impossible time being on Walt's side any more than just, I guess he doesn't actually owe her an explanation of how he's getting money.
Again, I mean, would he have come out with the FU if she hadn't had been pressing him, and then followed up with the I pity you? Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, if you know him as that well, then you should have known that was going to bring that, like the people that I'm really close to and intimate with, like you, my girlfriend, my son, I know what buttons I could push to get a screaming match going. Part of being intimate is trusting a person not to push those fucking buttons, right?
Sure, yeah.
So like,
but they're not intimate anymore, I guess.
Yeah,
they're just
that. Yeah, so like back up a bit. back up and give the dying man some space to breathe. I don't use the argument with Skylar because I know 360 what's going on, but Gretchen, fuck off. Get your Bentley, go back up to Santa Fe, and like again, you can refuse to stop.
Replace Walt with Aaron, and Aaron says the same thing. Fuck you.
Hell yes, right to her face. Fuck you for leaving Ross and for all the other shit you've done and all the other television series. I know what you're up to.
Okay, all right. Do you think there's a chance that Walt did this on purpose, trying to drive Elliot and Gretchen out of the equation completely so that his lie could be maintained?
What?
So if he tells Gretchen off here,
okay,
and she just decides, I'm never going to speak to Walt again, Elliot and Gretchen, we are both out of their lives for good, Walt can maintain that lie without any further
well, I mean, eventually,
right?
because Skylar says we'll be in more contact, so that's the weird thing.
She does. You can tell Skylar's pressing to get into that.
So here's what I think ethically she should have done.
Okay.
And if Aaron was in this person, is what I would have done, because I'm the paragon of ethics, right?
Obviously, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're gonna an official ruling. Skylar calls and says, wants to press for details and be like, you need to talk to Walt about that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you do. You don't confirm, you don't deny. You said, look, you need to talk to your husband about that. I can't put myself in that position. You need to talk to Walt about that. So
you don't like that she even maintained Walt's lie?
No.
As a courtesy to Walt.
What right does she have? I mean, I guess this is weird, but I feel like in a family unit, that wall is kind of sacrosanct. You can't, it's not just it's a man's home as his castle. It's like a family. Like, if a family wants to take outsiders and put them into their business, that's fine. But I don't know. I find it offensive as a Midwestern for people prying into my business when they don't belong.
Well,
and I know that Walt invited that by coming up with the lie in the first place, which is why I'm slightly on Team Walt.
Okay. I don't know. I think it's very complicated. And Gretchen here is trying to do right by Walt.
It's like, what do you do if you know your buddy's cheating?
At the beginning.
Are you honor bound to tell his girlfriend that you know that, or his wife? Or
probably
if a girlfriend says, do you know that I don't know. It's none of your business. Now, like, if you're my friend,
if they call you up and
I know your wife/girlfriend is cheating on you, then yes, I feel like as your friend,
but
that's my responsibility to do.
So what if you know that your friend is cheating on his wife, and his wife calls you up and says, thank you for going to Kings Island last weekend with Gino. I know he really appreciated that. Everything. Do you continue that lie, or do you?
I would probably.
Do you lie to her?
Honestly,
then you are part of the lie, and that's
that's
where Gretchen's coming from. Now she can't,
in
good conscience, tell Skylar the truth because her friend is obviously telling her a lie, and she wants to maintain that. So now she is mixed up in the lie.
So honestly, what I would do is I would go along with the lie as best as I could, which would probably be poorly, which would probably set a lot of alarm bells off because that's how those situations go.
Sure. Don't have
my next call would be to my buddy being like, WTF, that's not cool.
You wouldn't stop by for coffee in the afternoon?
If it ever happens again, that's the other thing.
That's a weird meeting.
Your next call is to like, are you available this afternoon? Floor the Bentley.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Gretchen.
And then
You're
just
a terrible
get there
person.
and have a pleasant conversation?
Yeah.
That's such a weird thing to do.
Yeah, it's like I would call my buddy.
Fuck Gretchen.
Exactly. I'd call my buddy and be like, this ain't cool. Don't ever let it happen again. But if the girlfriend called again, I'd be like, look, you need to talk to your husband. I wouldn't. You get a freebie because I feel like, but part of me being friends with a person is the assumption that you're a good dude. Good dudes do fuck up and make mistakes. Then the friendship says that you got to call and say, like, confront them. Like, I'm giving you a chance to be the good dude. What happens is you just don't, you're not, if they do it again, you're not friends with them anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
And then like,
they don't respect you enough not to mix you up in that shit anymore.
And that's like, she calls you again and you say that, like, you need to talk to your husband. That tells her what she needs to know, right?
Totally. So
that's the way I would roll in this situation.
Okay.
I certainly would not floor my Bentley and beat and hightail it to my buddy's wife's house and regale her with fake accounts of how awesome Kings Island was and accept compliments on paying for his Kings Island and all the large stuffed animals he won there. This is
All right. Okay. Let's
I can't
let's
even tell
bring
if
it
I'm a
back
terrible
around.
am I a good person, Jim?
I don't know. Ethics is a very fuzzy thing, man.
It is. It is.
Let's bring this back around.
All right.
I think once Walt starts showing his true colors here and completely denying exactly what happened between them, and like, you and Elliot cut me out, you and Elliot, I think Gretchen shows remarkable restraint at that point, to not just say "fuck you, Walt" and go tell his wife.
Oh no, you can't just because some dude says like "f you," you can't then go and I'm telling your wife.
Why not? He just told you to go fuck yourself. Yeah, that's.
Could she pull a gun out of her purse and shoot him in the face?
No.
So where does that license end?
Doing exactly what he just did to you, being as mean as he was to you.
Yeah, she could say something very hurtful personally and cut him. She could talk about his penis size. She could say how many orgasms she's faked. She could say what a pitiful man.
She does none of that. She shows remarkable restraint in not doing any of that, and feels more pity for him than
See, I would have been scandalized
tendencies.
if she actually called Skylar and laid it all out for her. That would have been
wow.
beyond the pale for me.
I don't know why. He deserves it. He deserves it.
Yeah.
He does. He does. Man, okay.
Again, did I mention the man's dying of cancer?
No. I think at that point he definitely deserves it.
All right.
Anyway, let's move on. They haven't been able to get the ATM open.
To be clear, Skylar deserves the truth.
I'm
not saying it's cool that Walt's lying to her. She definitely deserves the truth, and Walt needs to be there. But I take exception with what role Gretchen has ethically in being the judge, jury, and executioner of that truth.
Well, when the judge and the jury tell you to go fuck yourself, I think you're okay being the executioner. Honestly.
All right, Judge Dredd.
Anyway, we go back to the Spooge house, and they haven't been able to get the ATM open. The kid comes out to play some more Peekaboo, and that distracts Jesse long enough for Skank to knock him over the head and take his gun. This was just bad on Jesse's part. Bad move, man. Like, I understand you think these meth heads are passed out behind you, but never turn your back on these people.
And they did a great job of foreshadowing.
Oh, yeah.
How often Jesse turned his back on Spooge that had a fucking sledgehammer.
And you could see he wanted to use it. He was like debating, should I go in with the sledgehammer?
Yeah, and then Jesse would turn around
enough.
Yeah, man. It was a bad scene.
And then they have
not
moment.
Bad scene, like it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing's a bad scene.
Like in Austin Powers sense of the word.
Yes.
Not the directorial.
Then there's a moment where Spooge and Skank look at each other in a previous scene and kind of almost nod imperceptibly.
This guy ain't no Diesel.
And then the next scene they come back.
This guy's a Prius hybrid at best.
They're both sleeping and Skank is faking. And she goes over there and clocks him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jesse, sloppy.
Diesel. Jesse Diesel. And the kid.
Why don't they kill Jesse? Why don't they kill him here?
I feel
that's
like
one of the problems I have.
If their attention span was one iota longer, they would have.
I'm just too concerned about.
But as soon as the immediate threat, like you can tell how bad they were tweaking.
Yeah.
And as soon as he was knocked out cold, they probably. Well, I don't know. Probably she immediately shot up heroin.
She did, but he's like menacing him. Oh, look at my knife. Who's got the upper hand now? That sort of deal. Why doesn't he just kill him? He clearly killed the guy at the gas station.
I think when Jesse passed out, his immediate priority was to get high. He got high, and when I understand when you're high on meth, then you're all about doing whatever you were doing, and it's like explaining because these people are like drug addicts.
Oh yeah. Like sore open wounds on my face.
Like I was watching, the day after Christmas, they were debuting the high def version of The Wire, and I forgot just how bad like Bubs and his partner were. Like that's the kind of like just super high risk for so low reward and so short-sighted goal and moments of clarity and then waving them as they pass by. I'm like. I mean, I've never been in that position. Thank God I've never been addicted to a chemical substance, but it looks like a nightmare. And I think that's why they didn't kill Jesse, because that they needed to get high first. And then as a result of them getting high, they forgot what they were doing.
Okay.
I've certainly been there.
Oh yeah.
I've certainly been set out to do something and then engaged in a chemical of choice as I sloshed my glass around and forgot what I was doing. It never involved murdering another human being, but that's why I have a clear no meth, no heroin, policy.
2 days later, man, I meant to murder that guy. Damn it. Oh well.
Now he's out calling 9/11 after I murdered my old man Spooge.
So another good scene here. Walt gets home and Skylar wants to talk, and she tells him that Gretchen called to say they won't continue to pay for Walt's treatment, which I think he got off pretty easy there, but the Mr. Ethics says no. Skylar wants to know what happened. Walt tells her that he met with the Schwartzes and that they're broke. And Skylar seems a little suspicious.
Well, man, so close to selling that lie.
He really is
too smart.
She's just like slightly too smart for this.
Yeah.
He almost got it.
Almost.
And I don't think it wasn't necessarily the Bentley that did it. Like he could have explained that away as, they have a lot of money. The Bentley's on lease, whatever. Yeah. They don't they can't just sell the Bentley and their money problems are over.
I mean, that's the thing. You can say a lot of things about Skylar, but she's not an idiot.
No.
And I mean, she might not be the chemical genius that Walt is, but she's very perceptive.
Oh, yeah.
And she is able to, now that she's got her, the scent of him being dishonest, it just, that story doesn't hold up. And I felt like he sold it a little too short. Or he oversold his story a little bit too much. Like the fact that they were, broke or destitute, or they'd lost a bunch of money on Wall Street or something. It's like, yeah, they're driving Bentleys. I mean, I don't know.
I could totally see that though. They don't own their house. They don't own their car. Like none of this stuff is really owned. It's all sort of in the process of getting owned.
It's like, if you've seen the movie This Is 40, the Judd Apatow.
I haven't. No.
It's like, that's, like me and Cecily were watching that, and it epitomizes the concept of rich people broke.
Sure.
Like, if you've been so broke you can't afford to put gas in your tank, that's one thing. If you're so broke that you're worried about, oh man, can I make the second payment on my mortgage, and I got the 2 BMWs in the garage, that's like rich people broke.
Yeah.
Like you still have to downgrade your standard of living, but you still got electricity, you still got food on the table. Yeah, I totally would get a person like Gretchen would be too broke to pay a person's medical bills, but still driving around a Bentley.
Yep, definitely.
So, but as Skylar, that is a head scratcher. So,
yeah, I'm okay with it.
I thought that the thing that was a problem was Walt's reaction to her, keeping up the appearances. Yeah,
the way he doesn't make eye contact when he's saying it, and she just knows him too well to not think that he's.
It's like, what's weird is I feel like Walt has a particular tone of voice and bearing when he's lying.
I think so, yeah.
And as I've watched him for 6 seasons, that sticks out like a sore thumb. And you can tell when he's shifting into his lying gear.
That's the brilliance of Bryan Cranston, right? I mean, he has thought about this character. He knows his character so well.
Yeah.
That when he switches that on, it seems like it's on purpose because it's so consistent. So I really appreciated that. And then when he accuses Gretchen and Elliot of being prideful people. Oh my God. I thought that was just.
I'm amazed at his head. He didn't catch fire like Dragon Ball Z, style.
God.
He didn't go Super Saiyan mode.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. All right. Anything else in that scene, or should we?
Let's move on. Okay.
So Spooge has a brilliant idea. He's going to find the weak spot on the safe. So he tilts it up, gets underneath it, and he's drilling the bottom of it.
It's the deaths. They design ATMs like Death Stars.
They do.
You gotta have a weak point
underneath.
If you lose the key, you need an alternate way to get into it. You jiggle an ice pick in the bottom, and it's going to pop open.
Yep. Skank wants to hit a meth, and she's really concerned about that. She's also concerned about him calling her Skank all the time, over and over, and then decides I'm going to crush his head under the ATM, and then takes his meth, and she passes out. And right as she does that, the ATM pops open. Jesse's cleaning his fingerprints off. He's ready to get out of there. He grabs the money, calls 911, puts the kid on the porch, and he's gone.
Is Skank a skank? What is a skank?
I don't know. I thought a skank was similar to a slut. So I
See-
can't say for sure that she is a skank.
See, I don't agree.
Maybe a skank is something different. Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not about slut shaming. God loves sluts. I've been a slut before.
Sure.
Skank is just nasty.
Just
a nasty person. Like I don't know what the male equivalent of a skank is.
I don't know.
Skeevy,
Yeah.
a creep.
Yeah.
But she's unquestionably whatever a skank is. You look it up in a dictionary, and her face
Oh yeah.
with the scabies and everything is there. Right.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
She protests a bit too much about, and also
You're right.
it's like,
you know, the duck, when a duck's a duck.
Jesse called her a bad mother. She's a horrible mother, but she doesn't want anybody to. She doesn't want to hear of it from anybody.
I know. Yeah, it's these people, man.
Oh, and this is like
They do such a good job of making me hate these people.
yeah, like when Jesse was in his power mode and they were cowering on the couch and her son came out, her first instinct was to use him as a shield. Oh, baby,
Yeah.
come over here. Oh, get in front of me and the man with the bullets.
Yep.
Jesus Christ, lady.
I know.
Terrible mother. She's an unquestionable skank.
Maybe I shouldn't say that I hate these people. They are addicted to meth, addicted to heroin.
They're to be pitied.
Yes, I pity these people, and they could use some help instead of, the penalties that I'm sure they'll get.
And, the Peekaboo kid, you think that maybe he's got a shot at a better life with the cops showing up, but then you start looking at stuff about foster care.
You know what? He does have a better shot than being raised by them.
Have you seen season 4 of The Wire, man?
It doesn't matter. Look at those people, man. Look at them. There's no way. I look at that house. They're not feeding him. They're not doing anything to take care of this kid. At the very least, they'll have the social workers checking up and making sure that they're being fed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you're right. Like it's probably a step up in the foster care from a flop house, but it's still
it's
a
not
long
great.
road to having a good life.
Yes.
And that's the thing, it's a total crapshoot. You can get foster parents that are great.
Like Juno. Yeah.
And you can get foster parents that are really shitty. And then same way, that's the scary thing about being a foster parent is you don't know if you're going to get a kid with a heart of gold that's just had a bad, or you just don't know if like you're going to get a kid that's so damaged by the system that it's going to be a nightmare to deal with. I mean, wow. That whole situation makes me sad.
It's all bad.
Fuck this episode. I don't want to feel this way on New Year's Eve. Is it too late to pop the champagne, Jim?
Too early, I'd say.
It's certainly not too early to be drinking this much whiskey.
Well, debatable as well. That's it for the episode.
All right.
It's a good one. I really like this episode.
No, again, the only reason I hesitate to give it a top 5 is because I've never actually sat down with every episode and given a ranking.
Yeah. I just think there's so much good stuff in 4 and 5 that the top 5 is full of that stuff.
But I'm talking about like it's easy to think of like certain scenes are exciting or cool or epic moments, but the things that really grab you by the feels. That's the thing that sticks out to me. And Peekaboo, is right there with the best of them. So
yeah, you're right. Okay, why don't we do some pimping?
You want me to pimp?
Yes, I do.
Before we go out, I listened to Dave Porter's remix of the theme. Ingeniously worked in a sledgehammer into the remix.
Oh, nice.
That was the main percussion element of the Breaking Bad theme and if you don't know what I'm talking about, if you watch on Netflix or on DVD, Dave Porter actually came up with elaborate remixes of the main Breaking Bad guitar twang for the 30 seconds of the credits. 99% of Breaking Bad fans never get to hear them because they had "Next Time on Breaking Bad" played over it with the high-speed credit sequence. But give the man his due if you're watching on Netflix. You want me to do some pimping?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what? I want you to do pimping this time.
Me? I'll do pimping. All right. There are a bunch of ways to support us if you like what we do. We can
this man's been paying attention. Wow.
You can
this is going much better than I thought.
Well, it's not even close to over yet. You can go to amazon.baldmove.com if you're shopping on Amazon. You can get what do you say? Same great shipping, same great
products,
same great prices. But you just give us a little bit of love.
You make Bezos cry.
Make Bezos cry. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You can go to patreon.com/baldmove and check out our Patreon page where you can get some awesome extra bonus content. We do these casts live as videos.
Like, for example, for everyone watching, as far as they know, I have not changed clothes for an entire week. I've been living like a hobo.
As far as I know, too. I haven't seen you in a week.
I've been a hobo just waiting in the gutter for the next podcast. I didn't know what to do. Yeah. I played Peekaboo with some kid in a flop house.
Yep. But you can get a lot of extras there. Ad-free podcasts are a big bonus.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't ever want to hear this again, you don't have to for just $3 a month. You can also go to subbable.com/baldmove and you can get stuff. You can commission a podcast. You can commission those Back to the Future podcasts.
There you go.
Most importantly.
Hear me and Jim have a death match about is 2 or 3 the worst. It'll come to blows. I know it will.
Yeah, probably. Well, you can see all of that on the live video feed. So I suggest you sign up for both of those. But there's a lot of other stuff over there too. And I think that's about it for supporting us, right? Tell a friend, that sort of deal.
Yeah, you can do the rate, review on iPod.
Yeah,
iPod,
rate and review
iCast,
on iTunes.
iTunes.
That's super important. That keeps us up on the charts and keeps new people noticing us. That's it for pimping.
Feedback.
Okay, let's do feedback.
Spencer H said, Aaron, I trust immediately after recording the last podcast, you went and bought Jim a breakfast pizza. He obviously hasn't lived. Bad job on me.
Yeah.
I'm going. I don't know where you
lunch
find
with Jim and Aaron is another way to support us. We're gonna do a lunch with Jim and Aaron where I eat a breakfast pizza.
It's breakfast, school cafeteria, institutional breakfast with lunch and with Jim and Aaron. It's gonna feature tater tots, breakfast pizza.
See, that's the thing.
Hot Pockets.
As grown men, I have no idea how we will get our hands on a school cafeteria breakfast pizza.
Your
son. He can stuff one in his pocket. Bring it back.
He's in elementary school. They don't. They do breakfast. They do. Yeah.
Do they?
You might be right. But yeah, we need to get. I feel like Sam's Club would have that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Maybe
we can go to a distributor. We can make this a mission. We'll make a documentary about it.
There's a food warehouse. What is that thing called? The food, like where Long John Silver's goes to buy their food and shit.
I don't know.
It's right across the street. You know what I'm talking about?
The junkyard.
The Atlantic Ocean. No, there's a food outlet or that they might have that kind of stuff. You know, like if you want to go and get like Walking Dead style 128 ounces of chocolate pudding or a whole tray of breakfast pizza. If you have an idea of how we can lay our hands on this, because I would love to introduce Jim to the institutional style breakfast pizza.
I'd love to try it.
I don't want to go to prison. And I'd really not like to go back to high school to get it. But if you know where you can get it, email that to breakinggood@baldmove.com. Bad job on me, though. Mike B said, in the scene in the RV, this is all from last episode, by the way, the breakage. Jesse calls Walter Walt. I only recall this happening twice. In this scene and the scene yet to come in the series. All throughout the series, Jesse and Dearling calls Mr. White, Walt Mr. White. I find this very interesting. I can't remember if we actually mentioned it on the podcast because I wrote it down in my notes.
Yeah, I don't know that we mentioned it on last podcast, but we definitely did in seasons 4 and somewhere in season 4 and 5.
Yeah,
in our older episodes.
Yeah. As a person that's survived 2 bouts of lymphoma, so this is a really interesting look into the American healthcare, which we were talking about last episode.
Sure.
As a person who survived 2 bouts of lymphoma, I received radiation and chemotherapy treatments, and who has worked in the healthcare finance for 20 years, I feel qualified to offer the following clarification to Breaking Bad's commentary on our healthcare system. Breaking Good recognizes you as an expert witness in this case. So continue, please. First, there's nothing wrong with our healthcare delivery. It's the healthcare financing that is jacked up. The existence of an entrenched third-party payer system erroneously tied to a person's employer or to the government separates the patient consumer from the care provided in many ways. For example, patients have come to expect first dollar coverage for everything which we see a doctor, and any copayment is expected to be remarkably low. Office checkups for $15, prescriptions for $20, or free imaging, outpatient surgery, or acute hospital stays capped by an artificially low deductible or out-of-pocket maximum. And this mechanism, there is no incentive to control costs, and the price for service or procedure is negotiated between a myriad carriers and providers in a remarkably complicated, non-transparent manner. Totally agree. Contrast this with automobile insurance. We don't expect insurance to cover tune-ups, oil changes, tires, wiper blades, brakes, belts, hoses, minor body damage, etc. We pay for these maintenance costs ourselves, reserving insurance for higher end or catastrophic events. Also, auto insurance is not erroneously attached to our employer. We're free to shop around for the best package to fit our needs. As a result, turn on your television to any channel for 1 hour and try not to see a commercial for auto insurance. It's admittedly not a perfect comparison with a few notable exceptions. Humans are not machines, and driving a car is a privilege, not a right. Nevertheless, if our healthcare financing mechanism resembled more market economics instead of third-party payer barriers, patients would have more insight into what an appendectomy costs, to use your example from last week's podcast. I thought there's a lot right, or I agree with in that. That, my main thrust is if you're going to have a purely capitalist healthcare system, we don't have enough information to make smart decisions about our insurance carrier, about what hospitals we go to, about what healthcare providers. And yes, we also, we don't have it's ridiculous, the concept of prescription copays, right? It'd be like if you had automobile insurance that had a gas copay. Whether you have an SUV or you have a hybrid, you pay $20 per fill up. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Well, if it's cheap and I get it, sure, why not?
But sure, but that's how we get to this crazy ass shit.
Yeah.
He continues, as far as Walter's treatment not being covered by their plan, it is a convenient but necessary plot device in order for the story to work. And my personal, unfortunately vast experience as a patient and in the healthcare field, networks in areas as large as Albuquerque have many qualified specialists to offer treatment and second opinions. If you have a need, which Walter didn't, for a physician of such a high specialty that one does not exist in a network, carriers have wraparound services or tier 2 mechanisms for such cases. Although, as a side note, that's confusing as hell too.
Sure.
Like once you get out of your PPO or HMO and you start doing tier 2, you're already like, sure, how much do I pay you? Where do I go? Whatever. You're out of the realm of making economic decisions. Mm-hmm. Breaking Bad did this again with Hank. Oh, well, this is kind of a spoiler.
Yep.
They said in this episode, I've never in my years working in healthcare seen an HMO rep sitting in a session with a doctor where they're giving treatment options to the patient. In fact, it's probably a blatant HIPAA violation. I've seen in hospital cases, management team get involved, but not about treatment options, as they are involved in an advocate for the patient, not the health plan. So while I get that this could be in the Villigan's commentary on the American healthcare system, we as critics should acknowledge that there are liberties being taken in order for the story to work out.
As there are in all fictional stories, sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. It's just, like I said, I think more and more as Americans, we get frustrated at having to deal with this crazy system. And I think that this guy, Mike, did a good job in illuminating how we kind of got in this situation. But, my point is the rest of the world seems to have moved on to single payer, and we're the last kind of man standing. Don't know if that's a good thing. Yeah, but I do agree. It's not the healthcare that we got. It's not the delivery. It is the finance that is all jacked up. Tyler W says, it's interesting to see the contrast between Walt and Jesse in this episode. This is the Peekaboo stuff. When episode begins, you see Jesse playing with the beetle on the sidewalk and suggesting that Jesse has a live and let live attitude, a theme carried over from the previous episode with his explanation of breakage to Walt. Quote unquote, it happens, man. He only takes action when his hand is forced, and all the while feels nothing but wrong about the whole thing. Jesse's conscious and strong morality sharply contrasts with Walt's blatant disregard of right and wrong. Walt was full on Heisenberg in this episode. His pride is a major factor in the story. It shows how he continues to nurse feelings of being ostracized. Yet during the restaurant scene with Gretchen, she makes it clear that he was the only one, or he's the one that initiated his departure from their relationship as well as from gray matter. His hypocrisy is in full swing and reaches its zenith during his lie to Skylar at the end of the episode when he says that Gretchen and Elliot are prideful people. Man, fuck you, Walter.
Sure. No, we pointed that out. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
The sad thing about that is how close Skylar and Walt were in that scene. Mm-hmm. Like they were cuddled together. He had her hand on his knee, or he had his hand on her knee.
Hands on knees everywhere. Yeah.
Like a part of me wonders if he'd just if he at any point he just come clean, how the story would have been different in a positive way for the whites.
You mean during that scene, if he was just like, well, she was upset because I've been lying to you the whole time. I'm a meth dealer, manufacturer, not dealer. She would have been okay with that.
I don't know.
Eventually,
okay. I don't know. Okay, he definitely had to stop.
Yeah.
They could talk about like what is really important to the family versus what you think is important. And do I think she goes to Hank or the police? No, I don't. I really don't. And would that have been better for Walter White as the man? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a couple of opportunities like that now.
We got a lot more stuff to talk about in the spoiler section, but that's it for the main cast.
Okay, cool.
If you'd like to give us more feedback, you can do so at breakinggood@baldmove.com. You can find us on our forums at forums.baldmove.com, facebook.com/baldmove, or on Twitter @baldmove.
Yep.
That's a cast, except for the spoilers.
All right, cool. Well, if you're sticking around for spoilers, we'll see you in a couple minutes. If not, we'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Jim.
I'm Aaron. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. And we're back with the spoiler section. What do we have this week?
Just the fact that I kind of mentioned this in a non-spoiler, but the appearance of Innocent's connection with spiders. What is up with that? Jesse, Peekaboo, Drew.
What's the deal with spiders?
Yeah, I don't want to get Seinfeld with it, but really, what is the deal?
I don't know, man.
Like Danville, again, that really works better if you use like something that everyone as a culture agrees, like a teddy bear.
Yeah.
You know, a gingerbread man. He
seems to go the opposite way.
Weird with it.
I mean, look what he does with the teddy bear this time.
Right?
In this season, it's like he's going
it's the Walking Dead of teddy bears.
I know.
It's the all-seeing eye of Sauron of teddy bears. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. You got to wonder what some of his other symbols for really nice things are.
Also, you know, highlight the opposite reactions that Walt and Jesse have with violence. You know, seeing Spooge get his head caved in really bothers Jesse. And again, stuff bothers Walt, like, you know, seeing Crazy 8 get murdered, dissolving Emilio in a bath, shooting Gale in the face. And watch what happens to Jesse versus watch what happens to Walt. Walt detaches himself from his humanity. Jesse embraces it. Now, sometimes that's self-destructive, but that's not an unnatural reaction to have. Walt is the one who has an unnatural reaction. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like it, you know, the live and let live idea is tied up in that too with Jesse. I don't know if Walt ever comes along, Jesse ever has the desire to really do any of this stuff. You know, Walt's kind of on the mission and Jesse's...
Yeah, what happens to Jesse if Walt doesn't come in his life? He spends a couple months in prison, baby goes to technical school, moves to Alaska and starts a wood shop. I don't know.
Like it doesn't feel like Jesse would have ever been driven to become this big drug dealer like Walt is.
Oh, hell no.
So like the idea that they kind of cross paths somewhere in the middle where, you know, Walt goes from the family guy to Scarface, and then Jesse kind of has an opposite redemption arc. I feel like that might... I just feel like that's a really natural progression for these two characters as they've been set up at the beginning of the series.
Right.
And that's why Breaking Bad is one of my favorite shows, because they just pull that off effortlessly, it almost feels.
Sure. This revenge fantasy he has with Walt and Walt Jr., where they talk about dragging the guy into the desert. That, and it's so fascinating to know that this is the one season where they meticulously plotted it. That comes partially true when they abduct Saul Goodman and drag him out to the desert in the hood.
Oh yeah, I guess it does.
And it literally comes true in 411 Crawl Space when Gus drags him out to the desert with a hood on his face and threatens him and his family and his infant daughter.
Do you think, so talking about things that come true or things that play out, do you think they had ideas in their head to go a different direction with this season, kind of as they were writing this, that ATM stuff and, you know, the guy getting killed and Jesse with the fingerprints? Like, it's kind of why I asked you during the main cast if you think that ever comes back on him. Do you think they ever thought maybe this should come back on him? Maybe we're going to tie this in later and let's leave some loose ends here? Because otherwise, unless you're just playing it for comedy, I don't know why you show that montage of where they robbed the ATM from and that guy being dead. Is that to build tension? Like maybe these people could kill Jesse, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know that that's
It felt more
qualifies
like-
for a drop thread, but I see what you're going.
But it felt more like they put that as a ball that's up in the air that they could maybe catch later.
Yeah. But it also works as like introducing the concept of this quote unquote victimless crime.
Mhm.
Walt's like, all I want to do is make a pure product that's safe
and
performs as advertised and blah, blah, blah. Then you look at the miles of corpses he's left in his wake, and you see how that is belied.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Here's another one that here again, I wasn't really on the internet on the subreddits in season 2, but I guess that the community was abuzz back in the day about this painting in Walt's chemistry class of this woman that looks like Jane.
Okay.
A very cartoon stylized version of Jane, but Jane, all the same in the fact that I guess she's a white woman with long hair and she's looking face to face with a skull. And people were wondering whether that was foreshadowing. That painting was in, and I got this all from Serial, yeah.
Mhm.
But that painting was in season 1. It's very unlikely to me that they had in mind Jane in season 1.
Yeah. I think you're right.
But that's where, you got that whole strip mining of the past. It works. So that's all I got for like kind of my own nuggets. We have a couple of spoiler takes and feedback. Barry C has a great one. Said, revisiting this episode where Walter lies about gray matter being broke makes me wonder what's the best lie on the fly ever told on this show.
Oh my God.
He's got a few candidates.
Okay.
The fugue state was pretty good, as was how he explained it to the shrink. The Gus poisoned the child lie was pretty significant. Skinny Pete and Badger with the laser pins in the final episode was brilliant. But the one that shocked me the most was the confession tape. That felt like it was 5 years in the making and it blew me away. Hard to argue with that, right? However,
my
all-time favorite has to be the one from Skylar when she said Walt had been making his money with a blackjack system. What do we think is the biggest and best lie told in the series? I've got one to throw in a ring.
Okay, what is that?
Walt, is it 4 days out or 3 days out? Or is it 5 days out?
The one where he goes to his mother's, supposedly?
That was ballsy because it's so easily verified. And also,
it was.
It's an increasingly desperate Walt trying to pitch to an increasingly suspicious Skylar, and it's so easily verifiable that it sticks out in my mind as, even when I was watching it, oh God, this is not smart. So I don't know if that's best or what, but it definitely gave me a lot of anxiety watching it.
Gus poisoning the kid is a pretty good one. I mean, that is taking a problem and solving it, right? Like, not only is he getting Jesse off of his back, but he's turning him against the guy who has already turned Jesse, his partner, against Walt. Like, that just totally flips the table, or turns the table on Gus.
I think of things like, I don't know if they're lies or not. Like when Walt said to Jesse, after Hank beat the shit out of him in the hospital, and he's talking about how he's going to burn his brother-in-law, that he said, your cook is every bit as good as mine. Some people would say that's not a lie, but I don't think Walt really believes that. I don't think Walt really believes that Jesse's not as good as cook. Maybe he can follow his recipe, but does Jesse know what to do when humidity changes, when the temperature changes,
Walt never believes that. Walt's too prideful of a guy to believe that he would ever be eclipsed by his student.
And you see, like, that reduced Jesse to tears and got him another, season of unwavering loyalty. That's a pretty good lie.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe it was a complete bald-faced manipulative lie.
Yeah, I think lies are, the quality of a lie in this scenario probably should be judged on how I think lies that are easily proven wrong are bad lies.
Okay.
So I think like him going to his mother's is a bad lie.
Sure.
I think those types are bad lies. So for me, I judge it on, is the lie easily proved false to prove to be a lie? And also, what does the lie accomplish? Like, is the lie more than just a lie? Is it serving your purposes more than just in the moment? Is it also serving long-term purpose? And I feel like those big lies, like Gus poisoning the kid and poisoning Brock, are definitely good lies.
What about Walt sandbagging Gale to save Jesse?
Sandbagging Gale.
Yeah, he's
What
talking
is he-
about, and he told Gus that he can't work with Gale. I can't remember exactly what the lie was, but I remember he.
Oh yeah. He said basically to keep him from offing Jesse.
Even though
Jesse
Gale was
back.
far superior, and even Walt
Yeah.
would. That's the thing. That's a complicated relationship between him and Jesse. Like,
Yeah,
Walt
it's
would
very
prefer to work
complicated.
with Gale.
Oh yeah, in a laboratory setting,
Him and Gale fit
absolutely.
like glove and hand, but he
Yeah.
still has this weird, almost fatherly love and loyalty to Jesse.
Yeah, definitely loyalty is a good word for that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like the lies that he gets into with Gus, for the most part, are self-serving lies in the moment, just to keep his ass out of the hot water for 1 second longer. And those are great on the fly lies, but they're not great overall lies.
He continues, Barry C does. Do you guys think that the Carmen principal's plot line was a dropped point? She seemed to genuinely care for Walt, and in this episode, it felt like that they were starting to develop her as a potential love interest, especially when in the same episode, Gretchen seemed to show Walt. I love how you physically flinched.
Nope.
Especially when in the same episode, Gretchen seemed to show Walt had an attractiveness about him, implying that he hurt her and forced her into Elliot's arms. I'm glad that he never went with that, because I think cheating on Skylar would have gone against how Walt was able to justify turning into Scarface. You think it's a drop plot point?
No. I don't think anything's there.
And also it does come to fruition because
he
Walt
kisses her, yeah.
Walt responds to the IFT to the IKC, and Carmen's like, whoa, what the fuck? So yeah, I don't think it's properly dropped.
No, it's definitely not dropped. I think it's brought to a maybe unsatisfactory conclusion, if you want to say that.
I honestly thought that he was going to cheat on Skylar before everything was said and done.
I thought so too.
That was the one thing that he was going to really cross the line and betray his family, and they never did it.
No, so, I'm kind of glad that they didn't.
Yeah, in retrospect, I could defend either choice, but I liked what he went with.
Yeah, I feel like him staying at least loyal to his family in that regard says it wasn't all about his pride, and it wasn't all about like the reasons that he gave at the beginning. He got pretty far afield from those, but in the end there was at least a little bit of that mixed up in what he was doing.
All right, last one. Josh P said, it was widely speculated amongst the Bald Move listeners that Hank's boss Merker was in bed with Gus.
Yep. But
no connection was ever made out or outright mentioned. Let's, for the moment, assume two things. One, Merker or someone in the ABQ DEA, the ABQ DEA, was in cahoots with Gus. Two, Gus was aware of Heisenberg possibly through a DEA mole and has a sight set on him to cook. So now Hank has taken out the largest meth dealer in the ABQ solely through luck and has a raging hard-on for this Heisenberg fella. It's pretty obvious, looking at this, that Hank's promotion to El Paso is a way to draw him off the Heisenberg-Gus trail and maybe even get him killed. Merker, however, underestimated the old Schreidenbrow, I guess. Luck. It said Schreiderbach. But I don't know if he's like trying to make a play on Schreinerbach.
I don't know.
Schraderbrow luck that saved Hank in El Paso and brought him back to the ABQ and allowed him to fall ass backwards into killing Tuco and catching Heisenberg. But as we all know, luck runs out and Hank is no exception. What do you think of this elaborate, what would you call it, conspiracy theory?
If it's there, it was never conclusively proven or conclusively addressed, and it was dropped.
And if you go from what Vince Gilligan explicitly says as the word of God, he never, ever, ever intended to make DEA look as anything but paragons of virtue, protecting Americans from the horrors of drugs.
So,
which I think is unfortunate. I like
Sure.
The Wire better, where you can see that the cops are just as big of bastards as the drug dealers in some cases. But that was his express intention. He wanted to show nothing but admiration and love for those guys.
Yeah, it's a weird philosophy to take given the gray nature of this entire series.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm okay with it though. Why does there need to be a mole inside the DEA? It didn't seem like there did need to be one.
Someone's buying all that Whistle Pig.
Somebody is, you're right. And it's an expensive whiskey. So
And they also make the point of showing how extravagant Hank's house is. I don't know how much a DEA. What was Hank? Like a lead investigator? At this point, he wasn't like the special agent in charge or anything. He was just definitely a lead investigator or like a tactical team leader or whatever. I don't know how much they make, and I don't know how much a radiation tech makes.
Yeah, I wonder how much
they're
Marie
living in
makes.
a multi-million-dollar home in reality in Albuquerque in a very posh neighborhood.
Yeah, I imagine a lot of that's on Marie's salary.
I don't know. My aunt's a radiation technologist, and she doesn't make that much money.
Okay.
I mean, solid middle class, but not like, and that's the thing. Like, you don't know if they're.
I mean, they got no kids.
That's true. They're dinks.
Yeah, they're
Dual
probably
income, no kids.
Yeah.
You can live pretty high off the hog on a combined income of $100,000 if you got no kids.
Yeah, for sure.
So, as sometimes I fantasize about.
No.
Anyway, that's it for this episode. If you'd like to learn more, you can go to cerebral.com, check out their observations for Breaking Bad Peekaboo. As always, I will link that in the show notes. We will be back next week for episode 207. And next year, not just next week.
Next year, yeah. Okay, cool.
Happy New Year, everybody. Lots of cool, exciting things. January is going to really ramp up. February is going to be insane. We will have more podcasts than you can probably humanly keep up with. So we got that to look forward to. Anything else, Jim?
Nope, that's it. Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
See you next time. Shut down that shit. These cameras are still on.
Whoa.
Can't get out of here. What are you doing, man?
Down. Dropped, like I tried to drop the mic. It won't drop. I can't Chris Rock it.
No, I know. That's the bad thing.
Damn counterbalance mic stand. Thank you for supporting us on Patreon. Literally couldn't do it without you. Got lunch with Jim and Aaron coming out Friday. We're going to talk about our Christmas loot and our Christmas vacation experiences. It'll be a good time. Probably about 1 o'clock on Friday, Eastern Standard Time. We'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.